Nobody could tame this crazy Appaloosa horse. Then an old rancher did something shocking. The sun was just beginning to rise over the rolling hills of the ranch, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and pink. The morning air was crisp, carrying the familiar scents of hay, earth, and the faint musk of horses. Ranch hands were already busy, feeding cattle, repairing fences, and checking the water troughs, but today there was a tension that wasn't usually there. Today, a new horse was arriving, one that everyone in town had been talking about for weeks. This horse was no ordinary animal. It was an Appaloosa, a breed known for its striking spotted coat and incredible energy. But this one carried a reputation that made even the most experienced riders uneasy. Stories of its wildness had spread like wildfire. It had thrown its previous trainers, bolted from fenced enclosures, and resisted every attempt at taming. Ranchers who had tried to break its spirit had failed. Some said it was the most unmanageable horse they had ever seen. Others whispered that it seemed untouchable, almost as if it had a mind of its own. When the trailer carrying the horse finally pulled into the ranch yard, a small crowd of ranch hands had gathered. They were curious, eager, and a little nervous. Everyone wanted to see this wild beast for themselves. The trailer doors creaked open, and the horse cautiously peeked out. Its large, dark eyes scanned the surroundings with intelligence and wariness. Its coat was a beautiful mix of white and brown spots, glistening in the morning sun, but its beauty did nothing to hide the tension in its body. The muscles along its neck and legs were tight, and it stomped impatiently with its hooves, letting out short, sharp snorts. The ranch hands exchanged glances. One of the younger riders, trying to sound brave, muttered, "I bet we won't even get him out of that trailer without a fight." Others nodded, some shuffling nervously. The horse, as if hearing them, flared its nostrils and snorted again, ears pinned back. It was clear it wasn't going to be an easy task. The ranch owner stepped forward, a tall man with sun-weathered skin and hands roughened by decades of work. He had bought the horse not out of need but because he saw potential where others saw trouble. "He's strong, smart, and full of spirit," the owner said, his voice calm but firm. "I believe he can be tamed, but it will take patience, not force." As the ranch hands began to help guide the horse out of the trailer, it became immediately obvious why it had earned its reputation. The horse resisted every step, shifting its weight, rearing slightly, and trying to back up into the trailer. A young rider, eager to prove himself, stepped forward with a rope, attempting to lead the horse. The horse spun quickly, its hooves kicking up dirt, and the rider stumbled back, barely keeping his balance. Others tried, taking turns, but each attempt ended the same way. The horse refused to be controlled. Watching from a distance, the ranch hands could see the frustration building. The horse's strength and energy were overwhelming, and it seemed to anticipate every move. It wasn't just wild, it was clever. Every time someone thought they had an opening, the horse would pull back, circle, or leap in the opposite direction. There was no aggression exactly, but a clear determination to remain free. During the commotion, a few of the older ranch hands shook their heads. They had seen many horses in their lifetimes, but few as spirited as this one. "He's going to break more than a few egos before he settles down," one of them muttered. Another added, "If anyone can tame him, it'll take someone who truly understands horses, not just a strong hand." As the day went on, the horse was finally led into a small paddock. Even then, it paced back and forth like a caged lion, nostrils flaring, tail swishing, and ears alert to every sound. It would occasionally stop and stare directly at a person, as if trying to read their intentions. Every so often, it would snort sharply and back up, reminding everyone that it would not submit easily. The ranch owner watched quietly, not intervening. He understood that this was a horse that needed to feel safe, not trapped. Forcing it would only make it more defensive. He could see the energy, the raw intelligence, and the stubborn pride in this animal. Unlike other horses, this one had survived harsh conditions before it came here. It had likely been mistreated and neglected, which meant that trust had to be earned slowly, piece by piece. By evening, the sun had lowered, casting long shadows across the ranch. The horse had not calmed much, though it had stopped trying to bolt violently. Instead, it now circled the paddock, pausing to sniff the ground or glance at the people who were watching. There was a quiet defiance in its movements, a silent challenge to anyone who thought they could control it. The ranch hands were exhausted, their clothes dusty and their muscles sore from trying to manage the animal. They had expected a wild morning, but nothing had prepared them for the sheer energy and cleverness of this Appaloosa. Some of them sat on the fence, shaking their heads and talking quietly among themselves. "I've never seen anything like it," one whispered. "He's beautiful, but he's dangerous in a way you can't force." Despite all this, there was a sense of excitement in the air. The horse was not just a challenge, it was an opportunity. Its intelligence and energy hinted at the possibility of greatness if it could be properly guided. The ranch owner knew that this horse could become extraordinary, but only if approached the right way. And he also knew that this was not a task for the impatient or the aggressive. It would take someone with a deep understanding of horses, someone who could see beyond the wild exterior to the spirit within. As the last light of the day faded, the horse finally settled for a brief moment in the corner of the paddock, lowering its head slightly, though its eyes remained watchful. It was not calm, not yet, but it was alive with potential, and for the ranch hands who had watched it all day, there was no denying the power and intelligence this animal carried. That night, the ranch was quiet. The horse stood alone in the paddock under the starry sky, its breath visible in the cool night air. Inside the ranch house, the ranch hands discussed what they had seen, sharing stories of other wild horses they had encountered. But everyone agreed, this horse was different. It wasn't just untamed, it was something extraordinary. They spoke in hushed tones, not wanting to disturb the creature, but feeling a mix of awe and nervous anticipation. Little did they know, the true story of this horse was only just beginning. It would take more than skill, strength, or force to unlock its potential. It would take patience, understanding, and an unexpected approach that no one could have imagined. And soon, someone would arrive at the ranch, whose quiet confidence and deep knowledge of horses would begin a journey that would surprise everyone, and change the life of this untamable Appaloosa forever. For now, the horse stood in the paddock, restless yet watchful, a living testament to the power of spirit, the challenges of trust, and the excitement of what might come. The ranch hands went to bed that night exhausted, but with thoughts full of curiosity, wondering how such a strong, clever, and defiant animal could ever be tamed, and who, if anyone, could do the impossible. The next morning, the ranch was alive with activity. Sunlight spilled across the rolling fields, birds called from the trees, and the scent of fresh hay filled the air. But despite the calm of the morning, the Appaloosa horse in the paddock remained restless. Its muscles tensed, ears flicking at every sound, eyes sharp and alert. It was clear that yesterday's chaos hadn't taught it much about trust, and today, the ranch hands were ready for another round of trying to tame it. As the younger ranch hands discussed their plans, a quiet presence approached from the far end of the ranch. It was the old rancher, a man in his 70s with sun-weathered skin, a wide-brimmed hat, and hands that were rough yet steady. His movements were slow but deliberate, each step measured, as if he were in rhythm with the earth itself. Rumor had it that he had spent decades working with horses that others had given up on, that he could calm even the most nervous, dangerous animals with patience and understanding. The younger ranch hands glanced at each other skeptically. "You really think he can do something?" one of them whispered. "We've tried everything and that horse doesn't listen to anyone." Another nodded. "Yeah, he's strong, fast, and smart. He knows when someone is afraid and he uses it. I don't see how anyone can tame him." The old rancher didn't respond. He simply tipped his hat and walked closer to the paddock. The Appaloosa watched him with cautious curiosity, muscles coiling and relaxing as it studied the newcomer. Unlike the younger ranch hands who carried ropes, sticks, and whips, the old rancher carried nothing. No tools, no equipment, only himself and a calm, quiet energy. He stood at a distance just outside the paddock observing the horse. The younger ranch hands grew impatient. "Come on, just try to grab him," one said. "Maybe he'll finally give up." But the old man only shook his head gently. "Not like that," he said softly. "You can't force a horse like this. He's smart enough to know fear when he sees it. What he needs is trust. Trust, not fear, is what makes a horse follow." The ranch hands were doubtful, but the old man ignored them. He continued to watch, noticing details that no one else seemed to see. The way the horse shifted its weight from one hoof to another, the slight twitch of its nostrils, the flick of its tail when it grew nervous, all these small signs told him something important. The horse was alert, yes, but it was also curious. It wanted to understand its new surroundings, to figure out who this old man was. For hours, the old rancher did nothing more than simply be near the horse. He didn't try to lead it, ride it, or even touch it. He walked slowly along the edge of the paddock, his movements calm and predictable. Occasionally, he would stop and crouch slightly, allowing the horse to approach if it wished. He spoke in a low, gentle voice, not giving commands, just speaking quietly as if to say, "I am not a threat. I am here to understand you." At first, the horse kept its distance. It paced back and forth, occasionally stopping to snort and stomp its hooves. It was clearly trying to decide whether this man was like the others, someone to be feared and resisted, or someone different. The younger ranch hands grew restless, whispering among themselves. "Why isn't he doing anything?" one asked. "We could have this horse tied up and trained by now if we used ropes and whips," another scoffed. "I don't get it. This is ridiculous. The horse will never calm down like this." But the old rancher remained patient. He understood something the others did not. Rushing or forcing the horse would only make it more stubborn, more defiant. Instead, he allowed the horse to observe him, to grow accustomed to his presence, to see that he meant no harm. Slowly, the tension in the horse's body began to shift. It still moved cautiously, still stamped its hooves and flicked its ears, but the wild energy was slightly less chaotic. By midday, small breakthroughs began to appear. The horse stopped pacing for longer periods, sometimes standing still and watching the old rancher as he moved slowly around the paddock. It sniffed the air, and then, cautiously, it took a step closer. The old man smiled gently, not making any sudden movements, simply allowing the horse to approach on its own terms. The younger ranch hands were stunned. They had never seen a horse behave like this with anyone before. "He's actually letting him get close," one whispered. "I thought that would never happen." The old rancher nodded quietly, still watching, still patient. He knew that true progress was measured in inches, not leaps. Every small step the horse took toward him was a victory, and it showed that the horse was beginning to consider the possibility of trust. As the day went on, the rancher introduced small exercises. He would place a bucket of water near the fence and walk calmly away, allowing the horse to drink without interference. He would drop a small pile of hay and wait patiently, not approaching too quickly, letting the horse eat in peace. Each action was deliberate, designed to build confidence and teach the horse that the world was not a place of fear. Occasionally, the horse would show flashes of its wild nature. It would snort loudly, paw at the ground, or leap back in surprise. But the old rancher never reacted with anger or frustration. He remained calm, understanding that these reactions were not defiance. They were fear and uncertainty. And slowly, over hours and then days, the horse began to respond differently. It started to lower its head slightly in the old man's presence, a subtle sign of trust. Its ears, once pinned back constantly, began to relax, and it no longer tried to bolt every time someone entered the paddock. The younger ranch hands were amazed. "I don't understand it," one admitted. "We tried everything and it just didn't work, but this man, he's not even trying and the horse is listening." Another added, "It's like he knows what the horse is thinking. It's incredible." The old rancher, however, remained humble. He knew that this was only the beginning. The horse had not yet been tamed. It had not yet allowed anyone to touch it or ride it. What he had done so far was only to open the first door, the door to trust. And he knew that if he forced the next step too soon, it could all collapse. Late in the afternoon, the horse took a bold step. It walked a few paces toward the old rancher, sniffed the air near his boots, and then slowly lowered its head toward him. The old man crouched slightly, holding still, letting the horse come to him. For a brief moment, the ranch hands watched in silence as the Appaloosa touched the old man's hand lightly with its nose. There was no fear, no resistance, only curiosity and a flicker of acceptance. The scene left everyone speechless. The younger ranch hands had expected struggle, chaos, maybe even injury. Instead, they saw something they hadn't thought possible. The wildest, most defiant horse in the county had shown its first real sign of trust. It was a quiet, subtle moment, but it carried the weight of weeks of effort by those who had failed before. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden light across the paddock, the old rancher straightened up. The horse, still cautious but calm, stayed nearby. The younger ranch hands finally understood something important. Taming a horse wasn't about force. It wasn't about showing strength or skill. It was about patience, observation, and understanding. And the old man had all of those qualities in abundance. That evening, as the ranch quieted down and the stars began to twinkle above, the Appaloosa settled near the fence, watching the old rancher as he packed up his gear. There was a new energy in the horse's eyes, a mixture of curiosity, respect, and maybe even a small spark of admiration. The journey to tame it was only beginning, but for the first time, everyone at the ranch could see that it was possible. The old rancher tipped his hat to the younger hands, his face calm and knowing. "Patience," he said softly. "Trust comes first. Everything else will follow." And with that, he walked away, leaving the horse to its thoughts and the ranch hands to reflect on the lesson they had just witnessed. That night, the ranch was filled with quiet excitement. The impossible seemed possible. The untamable horse had met its first true guide, someone who understood that power and respect were not the same thing. And as the wind rustled through the trees, the horse stood in the paddock, alert but calm, ready for the next steps of a journey that no one, including the ranch hands themselves, could fully imagine yet. The morning air was crisp again, carrying the soft scent of hay and the earthy smell of the ranch. The sun had barely risen, yet the ranch was already alive with movement. Cows lowed in the fields, roosters crowed, and the horses in the distant paddocks moved with quiet energy. But all attention was on the Appaloosa horse, the one that had already caused so much chatter and excitement among the ranch hands. After the first day with the old rancher, everyone had been left in awe. The wild, untamable horse had shown its first signs of trust, and though it was subtle, it was significant. Now, the question everyone wondered was, what would happen next? How far could patience and understanding go with an animal so strong-willed? The old rancher arrived at the paddock just as the morning mist began to lift. He moved slowly, deliberately, taking care not to make sudden gestures that could startle the horse. His hat shaded his eyes, but the Appaloosa watched him intently, muscles coiled, ready to bolt at the slightest threat. However, there was a difference from the day before. The horse didn't snort or stomp as often. Its tail flicked less aggressively, and its ears, though alert, had a slightly more relaxed position. The ranch hands gathered at the edge of the paddock, curious and skeptical at the same time. Some whispered about how quickly the horse might revert to its wild behavior. Others hoped secretly that the progress of yesterday was just the beginning. The old rancher ignored them all. His eyes were fixed on the horse, noticing every micro-movement, a twitch of the nose, a slight shift in weight, the way the hooves dug into the dirt. Every detail mattered. Instead of attempting to lead the horse, the old rancher chose to spend time near the animal, not over it. He walked along the edge of the paddock, moving slowly, speaking in a soft, calm voice. "Easy, easy now," he murmured, though the words were more for rhythm than instruction. He crouched occasionally, keeping his posture relaxed and non-threatening, allowing the horse to observe and decide how close it wanted to come. At first, the Appaloosa kept its distance, circling the paddock like a lion pacing its enclosure. But slowly, curiosity began to take over. It stepped a little closer to the fence, sniffed the air, and watched the rancher's movements carefully. The old man made no sudden gestures. He let the horse set the pace. The lesson here was simple but profound. Trust could not be rushed and control could not be forced. Hours passed and small breakthroughs started to appear. The horse would occasionally stop pacing to nibble on hay or sniff the ground near the old rancher. Sometimes, it even lowered its head slightly as he approached, a subtle but important sign that it was beginning to accept his presence. These moments were brief, but each one built on the last, creating a growing connection that the younger ranch hands could only watch in disbelief. The ranch hands murmured among themselves, amazed by what they were seeing. "I've never seen a horse react like this," one said quietly. "We tried everything, ropes, whips, even chasing him in the corral, and nothing worked. But now, just by standing there, he's getting the horse to calm down." Another nodded. "It's almost like the horse respects him, or, I don't know, understands him." By midday, the old rancher introduced subtle exercises. He would drop a small pile of feed in the paddock and step back, letting the horse approach it without interference. Sometimes he would toss a light rope onto the ground, not tying it, just letting the horse investigate. The Appaloosa would sniff, paw at the rope, sometimes step back, but it never bolted, never tried to attack. Each cautious movement toward the rope or hay was a victory in itself. The real challenge came when the old rancher attempted closer contact. Slowly, carefully, he reached out his hand, letting the horse approach him rather than forcing proximity. At first the horse flinched, stepping back nervously, but the rancher remained calm, lowering his hand and waiting. Minutes passed. The horse sniffed, pawed, and finally nudged his hand lightly with its nose. A quiet murmur of awe ran through the ranch hands. No one had expected such a delicate, careful approach to work. The old rancher didn't celebrate or rush the process. He understood the importance of patience. He let the horse pull back whenever it wanted, never punishing hesitation or fear. Over the next few days, small gestures continued. A lowered head here, a soft nuzzle there, a gentle touch of the nose. Each one built trust, forming a foundation that no amount of force could create. One afternoon, the horse showed a new kind of curiosity. It followed the old rancher's movements along the paddock, staying a few steps behind but maintaining focus on his every action. It was as if the horse was testing a new understanding, exploring the boundaries of trust. The ranch hands held their breath. They had seen horses move toward humans before, but never one as wild, intelligent, and cautious as this Appaloosa. The old rancher also noticed something else: the horse's emotional reactions. He could tell when it was anxious, when it was curious, or when it felt safe. By observing and responding to these small cues, he was teaching the horse not through commands, but through communication and mutual respect. It was an old method, one that many young trainers had dismissed, but here it worked like magic. Over the next week, the horse began showing more consistent signs of trust. It allowed the old rancher to touch its neck and shoulders gently. It no longer bolted at sudden movements. Occasionally, it would even stand quietly while he approached, a quiet acknowledgement that he was no longer a threat. The ranch hands began to understand what had been missing before. The horse had never been approached with true understanding. All the ropes, whips, and force in the world could never replace patience and empathy. One morning, the horse surprised everyone by following the old rancher across the paddock without a lead rope. Step by step, it mirrored his movements, staying close but not crowded. The old rancher spoke softly, narrating his actions in calm tones. "Easy now, steady, good boy." The horse responded with subtle movements, ears flicking in acknowledgement, muscles relaxed, body tension easing. The younger ranch hands watched, completely silent, unable to believe what they were seeing. There were still moments of wildness, of course. The Appaloosa sometimes snorted loudly, pawed at the ground, or leapt back in surprise. But each of these moments was met with patience, not punishment. Slowly, the horse began to realize that reacting with fear was unnecessary, that calm and trust brought safety, not danger. The old rancher's quiet consistency began to reshape the horse's behavior, one small breakthrough at a time. By the end of the week, the progress was undeniable. The Appaloosa no longer paced endlessly or reacted to every movement with panic. It allowed touch, followed the old rancher without fear, and even showed glimpses of curiosity and playfulness. The ranch hands were amazed. "I can't believe it," one whispered. "It's like a completely different horse," another said. "All that patience, I guess there really is more to this than just strength or skill." The old rancher, however, remained humble. He knew that while these small victories were important, the journey was far from complete. Trust had been established, yes, but the horse was not yet ready to be ridden or trained for work. What had been built was a foundation, a fragile but growing bond based on understanding, respect, and patience. And he knew that if this foundation were rushed or broken, all progress could be lost. Evenings at the ranch now carried a quiet excitement. The horse would often stand calmly in the paddock, watching the old rancher move among the fences, checking the water troughs, or simply walking along the edge of the field. It was alert, but no longer frantic. It was learning that the world was not always a place of danger, that there were humans who could be trusted, and that calm and respect were more powerful than fear or force. The younger ranch hands had begun to learn from the old man as well. They observed how he spoke, how he moved, how he responded to the horse's slightest gestures. They realized that taming a horse was not about controlling it, but about working alongside it, understanding it, and earning its trust. The lessons were subtle but profound, extending beyond the paddock and into the philosophy of handling animals, or even people in life. By the end of Part 3, a transformation was clear. The once wild, chaotic Appaloosa was beginning to show glimpses of the horse it could become. Strong, intelligent, and spirited, yes, but also capable of trust, curiosity, and cooperation. The journey was far from over, but the first steps had been taken. And all of it had been possible because of one thing: the old rancher's patience, his understanding, and his unwavering belief that trust could be earned, never forced. For the first time, everyone at the ranch could see that taming this wild horse was not a question of strength or skill. It was a matter of heart, and with that heart guiding the way, the impossible seemed possible. The morning light spilled over the ranch in soft golden beams, illuminating the paddock where the Appaloosa horse stood quietly, ears flicking at the gentle breeze. The once wild horse had changed since the old rancher had arrived, but it was still far from tamed. Its eyes were bright with intelligence, alert to every movement, muscles coiled with energy. It had learned to trust the man, yes, but no one had yet dared to attempt the ultimate challenge: riding it. The ranch hands gathered near the paddock, buzzing with anticipation and skepticism. Some whispered that it was impossible. "There's no way he can ride that horse," one said quietly. "It's still too wild. Even a rope can't control him completely." Another shrugged. "I'd pay to see him try, though. Maybe he'll surprise us." The old rancher stood calmly at the edge of the paddock, watching the horse with a steady gaze. He carried nothing with him, no saddle, no bridle, no ropes, only his quiet confidence and decades of experience. He had spent days building trust, observing the horse's movements, understanding its fears, and creating a bond that could not be forced. Now, it was time to take the next step, and he knew that one wrong move could undo all the progress made. He approached the Appaloosa slowly, speaking in a soft, steady voice. "Easy now, easy," he murmured, crouching slightly to make himself appear smaller and less threatening. The horse watched him carefully, nostrils flaring, tail swishing nervously. It pawed at the ground but did not bolt. This was a small victory in itself. For several minutes, the old rancher simply stood near the horse, allowing it to get used to his proximity. He reached out a hand, letting the horse sniff it, and spoke gently. The horse lowered its head slightly, testing the man's patience, then stepped back, unsure of what would come next. The old rancher smiled faintly, speaking soothing words. "That's okay, I'm not going to hurt you, we'll go slow." Then, in a move that shocked the ranch hands, the old man climbed onto the horse bareback without a saddle or bridle. Gasps filled the air. The younger ranch hands froze, certain that the horse would buck, spin, or throw him to the ground immediately. They had never seen such bravery, or perhaps foolishness. The Appaloosa snorted, lifted its head high, and pawed at the ground, muscles tensing as if to spring away at any moment. But the old rancher remained calm. He adjusted his weight slowly, feeling every movement of the horse beneath him. He did not pull on the reins, because there were none, but instead shifted gently with the horse's rhythm, leaning slightly, staying in sync with its body. The Appaloosa bucked once, then stopped, confused by the steady presence on its back. It had never experienced riding this way before, and there was no force, no pressure, only a calm hand, a steady weight and patience. The ranch hands watched in awe. Some whispered excitedly, others held their breath. "He's going to get thrown," one muttered. "No, wait, he's staying on," another said, eyes wide. The horse shifted nervously, tail swishing, ears flicking, but it did not bolt. Slowly, very slowly, it began to move forward, testing the rider's balance, then stopping, then stepping again. The old rancher guided the horse not with force, but with subtle cues of weight and presence. A slight lean to the left and the horse adjusted its steps. A gentle shift back and it slowed down. The Appaloosa's muscles rippled under his hands and legs as it began to understand that the man on its back was not a threat, but a partner in movement. Minutes passed, and the horse began to relax just slightly. The old rancher whispered calm words, soothing tones that carried over the paddock. The horse's breathing slowed, the tension in its neck eased, and for the first time it began to step confidently with the rider. Each step was careful but deliberate. Each pause was met with patience. The bond that had been forming for days was now being tested in motion, and it was working. Then came a sudden moment of challenge. The Appaloosa, startled by a noise from the nearby fence, spun quickly. The ranch hands gasped. The horse's muscles tensed, and it seemed as though it might throw the old man off entirely. But he remained calm, leaning with the horse's movement, shifting his weight in rhythm with its instincts. Slowly, deliberately, he steadied the horse, guiding it back to a calm pace. The ranch hands were silent, watching the impossible unfold before them. Over the next hour, the old rancher continued to work with the horse in this unusual way. He did not rush. He did not punish. He moved with the horse, anticipating its reactions, responding gently to its energy. The Appaloosa began to step confidently, even stopping on command from subtle shifts in the rider's body. It was as if a new understanding had formed, one that did not rely on ropes, whips, or loud commands, but on trust, respect, and subtle communication. The younger ranch hands were amazed. They had seen many horses in their lives, but never one so intelligent, so strong, and so defiant. and they had certainly never seen one respond so quickly to a rider without any equipment at all. Whispers ran through the group. "I can't believe it, he's actually riding him," one said. "That horse, it's learning to trust him in motion," another added. By afternoon, the Appaloosa had made significant progress. It moved across the paddock under the old rancher's guidance, stopping and starting, turning corners, and even responding to the slightest cues. Its tail swished less nervously, ears were more relaxed, and eyes carried a calm curiosity instead of wild panic. The bond between horse and rider had transformed from wary observation into coordinated movement, and it was a sight that left everyone on the ranch in awe. There were moments of small celebration. When the horse lowered its head gently as the old rancher slid off for a break, one of the younger ranch hands whispered, "That's it, that's real trust. He trusts him completely." Another nodded. "I've never seen anything like this in all my years of working with horses." This isn't just taming, this is a connection. The old rancher, however, remained humble. He understood that this was still the beginning. The horse had learned to move with him and trust his presence, but the journey to full taming and riding on all terrains would take more time. There would still be challenges, missteps, and moments of fear. But what had been accomplished in a single morning was extraordinary. The impossible had begun to happen. Evening came, painting the ranch in shades of gold and orange. The Appaloosa stood calmly in the paddock, its coat gleaming in the fading light. Its movements were more relaxed, more measured. It approached the old rancher willingly as he walked along the fence, allowing him to touch its neck and shoulders without hesitation. The younger ranch hands, tired but exhilarated, realized that what they had witnessed was nothing short of miraculous. For the first time, they understood a simple but powerful truth. Taming a horse, or anything wild, was not about force or domination. It was about understanding, patience, and the ability to move in harmony with another being. The old rancher had shown them that the Appaloosa was not wild in a way that could only be broken by power. It was wild because it was smart, alive, and unafraid. And the only way to reach it was through trust, respect, and gentle guidance. As night fell and the ranch quieted, the Appaloosa settled in the paddock, calm but alert, standing near the old rancher as if guarding him as much as being guided by him. The younger ranch hands went to their quarters, talking excitedly about what they had seen, trying to make sense of the incredible transformation. They were exhausted, but their minds were buzzing with awe, admiration, and curiosity about what would happen next. The old rancher looked out over the paddock, watching the horse with satisfaction. He knew the true test was yet to come, but the foundation had been laid. Trust had been earned, a connection had been formed, and the impossible had begun. The Appaloosa had begun to learn that it could be guided without fear, that there was safety in partnership, and that even the wildest spirit could find harmony with patience and understanding. And so, the day ended with the once untamable horse standing quietly beside the man who had earned its trust, a living testament to the power of patience, respect, and the quiet, shocking magic of understanding an animal on its own terms. The morning sun rose slowly over the ranch, spilling golden light across the paddocks and fences. The Appaloosa horse stood quietly near the old rancher, its coat shining in the warm light. It had changed dramatically from the wild, untamable horse that had arrived weeks ago. Now its movements were calm, measured, and confident. The ranch hands gathered at the edge of the paddock, still in awe of the transformation. The journey had been long and delicate. The horse had gone from pacing and snorting, refusing to be touched or led, to standing calmly, following the old rancher without ropes, and responding to subtle cues in movement and presence. It was no longer a creature defined by fear and defiance, but by trust, curiosity, and partnership. And the man who had made this possible was not the strongest or the loudest, but the wisest. That morning, the old rancher decided to take the next step. He would allow the younger ranch hands to witness the horse being ridden in a more complete form, showing that it could respond and follow calmly under control. He approached the horse with the same quiet confidence, greeting it softly and allowing it to sniff his hand. The Appaloosa nudged him gently, as if acknowledging that it was ready for the next part of the journey. Without a word, he swung onto the horse's back, bareback as before. The younger ranch hands held their breath. The horse, while calm, still had the strength and spirit of a wild animal. One sudden movement or surprise could undo everything. But the old rancher's steady presence seemed to anchor the horse. Its muscles relaxed, and it stepped forward with measured movements, following the subtle shifts in the rider's weight. They walked first, carefully circling the paddock, the horse responding perfectly to small cues. Then slowly the rancher asked for a trot. The horse obeyed, moving with controlled energy, hooves hitting the ground in a steady rhythm. The sound echoed across the ranch, a reminder of the power and grace of the Appaloosa. The younger ranch hands whispered among themselves, amazed. "I've never seen anything like this," one said. "It's beautiful. It's like they understand each other without words." Next came the canter. The horse picked up speed, but it did so in perfect coordination with the old rancher's guidance. There was no panic, no frantic movement, just smooth, controlled motion. The bond between horse and rider was evident in every step. It was clear to anyone watching that the Appaloosa trusted the man completely, responding to him not out of fear, but out of a mutual understanding and respect. After several rounds of walking, trotting, and cantering, the rancher slowed the horse and allowed it to stop near the fence. He slid gracefully to the ground, and the horse stayed beside him, standing calmly. The younger ranch hand stepped closer, still in awe, reaching out cautiously to touch the horse. It allowed them to, nudging their hands gently, showing that it was beginning to extend the trust it had learned from the old rancher to others. The transformation was astonishing. The horse had gone from a creature no one dared approach to a majestic Appaloosa who could be guided and worked with calmly. But more than that, it had learned something far more important. It had learned that humans could be trustworthy, that calm and patience were more powerful than force, and that respect created partnership where fear could only create resistance. The old rancher looked at the horse with a quiet pride. He had seen countless animals in his life, but there was something extraordinary about this one. It was not just its strength or beauty that made it remarkable, but its intelligence, its spirit, and its ability to change when given the right guidance. The bond they had formed was not built on dominance, but on understanding, a lesson for everyone at the ranch. As the day went on, the old rancher allowed the younger ranch hands to take small turns guiding the horse, under his careful supervision. At first, the horse responded cautiously to their presence, testing them, gauging their patience and intent. But as the ranch hands followed the principles they had observed, moving slowly, speaking gently, and giving the horse space, it became clear that the lessons were transferable. The Appaloosa responded, showing that trust could extend beyond a single individual when approached with respect and care. By late afternoon, the horse had calmed fully, standing quietly in the paddock as the sun began to set. The ranch hands reflected on what they had seen over the past days. They realized that this horse, once labeled untamable, had shown them something far greater than obedience. It had taught them about patience, empathy, and the power of understanding another being's perspective. They had witnessed firsthand the difference between force and guidance, between fear and trust. The old rancher called everyone together. He spoke softly, but his words carried weight. "This horse was never untamable," he said. "It was just misunderstood. All it needed was patience, respect, and someone willing to listen to what it was telling us. Every animal has a spirit, and every spirit deserves understanding." His words hung in the air, and the ranch hands nodded, absorbing the lesson. As night fell, the ranch grew quiet. The Appaloosa stood near the old rancher, its coat glowing under the soft light of the moon. There was a calmness about the animal now, a confidence that had been missing before. It had learned to trust, to respond, and to work alongside humans rather than against them. And the old rancher had shown that sometimes the most powerful way to guide a wild spirit was not with strength, but with patience, respect, and understanding. The story of the Appaloosa spread through the small town. Neighbors and ranchers, who had once laughed at the idea of taming such a wild horse, now came to see it for themselves. They watched in awe as the horse moved gracefully under the old rancher's guidance, a living testament to what could be accomplished when patience and empathy replaced force and fear. For the ranch hands, the experience left a lasting impression. They had learned that true mastery over a horse, or any challenge, did not come from domination, skill, or speed. It came from observation, understanding, and trust. The bond between the Appaloosa and the old rancher became a model for handling not just horses, but all creatures and situations in life. Weeks passed, and the horse continued to thrive. It worked alongside the ranch hands in daily chores, pulling carts, helping in the fields, and even allowing others to ride it under the watchful eye of the old rancher. Its spirit remained strong, its intelligence sharp, and its movements confident. But now it had learned that the wildness in its heart could coexist with guidance, trust, and partnership. The old rancher, quiet as always, continued his daily routines. He never boasted about the success, never sought attention or praise. To him, the work had been about connection, understanding, and respect. The horse had given him as much as he had given it, a bond that went beyond simple training, a relationship built on trust and mutual recognition. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the Appaloosa stood near the fence, watching the old rancher as he walked along the paddock. There was a calmness in its eyes, a sense of loyalty and awareness. It nudged his hand gently, and he responded with a quiet smile, patting its neck. The journey had transformed both of them, the horse from a wild, untamable spirit into a partner capable of trust, and the ranch hands from skeptics into witnesses of the power of patience and understanding. The lesson of the Appaloosa remained with everyone at the ranch. Some challenges cannot be overcome with strength alone. Some spirits require time, observation, and respect. And when those things are offered, even the wildest, most stubborn creatures can become willing partners, capable of greatness that no one imagined possible. The story ended not with a sense of finality, but with quiet reverence. The horse, once feared and misunderstood, now moved with confidence and trust. The old rancher had shown that true mastery was not about force, it was about connection. And the ranch, filled with admiration and respect, had learned a lesson that would stay with them for the rest of their lives. The Appaloosa, once untamable, had become a symbol of patience, trust, and the quiet power of understanding. It stood proudly in the paddock, watching the sunset, a living reminder that sometimes the greatest victories come not from strength, but from heart. And as the stars appeared in the sky, the ranch grew silent once more, filled with awe at what had been accomplished. The wildest horse, guided not by fear or force, but by wisdom, patience, and respect, had finally found its place, and in doing so had left a lasting mark on everyone who witnessed its transformation.